The lottery is not about getting rich. It's about helping people, and it always has been. The lottery is what helped raise the Great Wall of China, build the roads of Rome, and today, in South Carolina, it's what generates millions of dollars each year for scholarships like the SC Hope, Life, and Palmetto Fellows. The South Carolina Education Lottery is investing in you. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou to learn more.
You're listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you along for the ride. We have a ton to get to today and all of it pertaining to LSU football. Wednesday was the traditional signing period. Yes, that still exists as we've kind of mocked and pointed out all throughout the week. But Brian Kelly did hold a press conference, not necessarily for National Signing Day because the hay was in the barn for LSU, but he did talk about the transfer portal class going forward in the transfer portal as well, and all the new staff changes that took place, and some that are still in the works and coming. It was a very productive 28 minutes on Wednesday with BK. We're going to hit all the high points for you here on LSU Daily today. So subscribe to the podcast if you have not already. Anywhere you get your podcast, just search LSU Daily. Hit that subscribe button. Follow me on social media as well on Twitter X at Musso Matthew, Instagram at Matthew Musso1, Facebook. You can find me there as well. And all of that is greatly appreciated. Let's go ahead now and dive right in. Let's get started. We'll start with portal class. And Brian Kelly mentioned the portal class in its totality probably 3 times throughout the entire press conference. This one I found to be the most impactful when he talked about what their big picture plan was heading into the December portal window. Remember, it was back in December that Brian Kelly went on the record and was very blunt and said, we will be aggressive in the transfer portal this cycle. And they were.
The big picture plan is exactly what you said. It was to surround Garrett on offense, to give Blake the pieces that he needs on defense, to have a championship roster. And I believe we did that on paper. Now we need to go to work on that. And that work is in the details over the next few months.
The big picture plan was to surround Garrett on offense and give Blake Baker what he needed on defense in order to build a championship roster. And they believe they've done that. And there's no reason not to. And he said the right thing on paper. Now it's time to go get to work. Because on paper, LSU has built a championship roster. It's the way we've punctuated just about every conversation we've had about LSU and the transfer portal since they started this crusade back in December. You look at it, 16 members of the class, 8 on offense, 7 on defense, and 1 special teams member, the punter from Middle Tennessee State. They added Chadwick. They added a player to impact, at least a player to impact every phase of the game of football. Because they needed that still at every level. You lost a lot on offense, you had to replace. Yeah, you have plenty coming back, and you brought in some really good players. And the other thing, he's talked about, they needed the depth. He said that later in the press conference. Look, yeah, they still want to build through the high school ranks. And he mentioned 3 straight top 10 high school classes and whatnot. But we went a little bit heavier in the portal because we didn't have the depth that we needed to. And the quality depth, the starters that can come in and play. And a lot of that is because, yeah, you've had 3 top 10 high school classes, and that's great. And you're going to continue to do that, especially with the staff you've assembled to recruit Louisiana and surrounding areas. But we've all talked plenty about that 2023 class. They're gone. They've all left. So portal's going to have to continue to be a large part of this for LSU. And they're in a position now to execute that. And rev share's coming and all of that. You saw the NIL. Brian Kelly mentioned yesterday they met every goal they wanted with the $1 million match that he put forth. They checked every box and hit every goal. and that he thinks the fans and donors and everything, they're much more educated on NIL. They're much more willing to donate it, and LSU's in a better spot there. They're in a better spot in the portal. Staff-wise, they're in a better spot. All things that Brian Kelly talked about. But with the class itself, that portal class being added to what you have, they feel like they accomplished their goal in building a championship roster. Now they go get to work, and we'll see if that comes to fruition. Now, the other part of that conversation is there is still the spring portal window. Like, that still has to happen. And we've talked plenty about that. Specifically at offensive tackle. That's really that position that everyone's still looked at and go, okay, if they're going to go get anybody, it's going to be there. And Brian Kelly was asked midway through the press conference about the spring portal window and if there's any needs that they have remaining that they will address come the second portal window.
I think we go into this next portal window with no expectations of we need to get somebody out of the spring portal. It would have to be something that just was a right fit for us. So we don't go into the second portal with any expectations like we had going into the December portal.
So there you go. He's on the record. There's no expectations that they have that they will need to add someone else in the spring portal window unless it's just too good of a fit to pass up. Now, things can obviously change. Look, LSU's going to go through spring practice, and if things don't, kind of hit the way you want, maybe you do have to go add. But right now, they're done. And that's specifically telling along your offensive line. Like, that's where it impacts you the most because, as we said before we played the cut, the position everybody was kind of looking at still was offensive tackle. So what might it look like? Well, now you kind of have a start to the answer. We'll get the answer during spring practice when we can all go out there and actually see who's lining up where and with what unit and all of those things. But you obviously brought in a guy like Josh Thompson from Northwestern out of the portal that has experience at both guard and tackle. And that's left tackle and right tackle in the Big Ten, which is a trenches league. He can fill a spot for you there. Like, it would make sense that Josh Thompson plays one of your tackle spots now if you're not going to go get somebody else in the spring portal window. So that opens up guard, where you have, plenty of options. Braylon Moore will play center. Okay, DJ Chester could slide to one of those guard spots now. He started every game for you a season ago. At center, just move him down to guard. Paul Mubanga is certainly an option there as well, who started in place of Garrett Dellinger, the last month of the season for LSU? And really had baptism by fire. Like, they threw him in there and just go. Well, that experience is going to help him out a lot. Can he take the next step? If he does, he gets to compete for one of those spots. And then there's the young guys. Cohen Eccles acquitted himself quite nicely in bowl practices and in the bowl game. It's a former high 4-star guy that they feel great about. He's going to get an opportunity. Carius Kern, who we've talked about plenty, 5-star. Coming in, Brian Kelly himself said physically he's ready to play in the SEC. He's absolutely going to get a run at one of those guard spots. And then you have Solomon Thomas, who's also rated a 5-star by some services, coming in that can play interior offensive line. You've got a lot of options there. And then again, as we're assuming Josh Thompson plays one of your tackle spots, the other one, that tells you they feel good about Tyree Adams and Weston Davis. That those guys will have a good chance to battle it out, and let's see how it goes. Who can take advantage of that spot, whether it's left or right tackle? For what it's worth, Tyree Adams played left tackle in the bowl game, and until he got hurt, was your 6th offensive lineman everywhere except center. That is going to be, that and safety, is going to be the two most interesting groups to watch in spring practice for me. Because of everything that you're losing on the offensive line, but also because of everything that you've brought in. You're losing a lot, but man, you have options. And now it sounds like they're settled. So it's time to let those options go to work. And Brian Kelly even said that the offensive line is in for a, quote, very competitive spring. And then safety, obviously, because it was your worst position group on the team last year, and you've brought in some pieces, and you'll have some new guys kind of coaching back there as well. And it'll just be interesting to see how that group comes together because they really need to take a jump. Now, speaking of some new coaches, Brian Kelly did talk about hiring Alex Atkins, and LSU made that official yesterday, sending out the tweet. And the contract is now out as well. Wilson Alexander over at The Advocate got his hands on a copy of the deal and reported the details on Wednesday. It is a 3-year deal for Alex Atkins as the tight ends coach / run game coordinator. Average of $450,000 per year. His first season, he'll make $250,000. It will increase to $450,000 the next season and $650,000 in the final year. Of course, the contract ends after the 2027 season. There are incentives for postseason and stuff for him as well. For what it's worth, you might say that sounds low. Well, he's still got the buyout money coming from Florida State. He was set to earn $1.3 this season at Florida State and $1.4 in 2026 as their offensive coordinator. So there is obviously still some buyout money coming from Tallahassee, so LSU can make it a little bit more affordable on their end, and it still is attractive to a guy like Alex Atkins. They're very excited to have him. Brian Kelly mentioned all of that yesterday, specifically with what he'll bring in the running game. And look, we had that conversation when they hired Alex Atkins. It was one of the reasons I loved it so much. Now, they've also brought in a bunch of analysts, and they're not done. And Brian Kelly mentioned that a couple of times on Wednesday. First, he was asked how special teams will be handled because, of course, you lost both Slade Nagel and Bob Diaco.
I think, first of all, we've hired Aman Anad to be involved in our special teams. He was at Grambling. Really excited about him. We'll add another special teams coach to the mix there to just support that unit, those units in particular, and feel really good about that.
So there you go. Aman Anad will handle special teams, which we thought, but the interesting part is at the end when he said, and we will add another coach, just to kind of help out in there. So probably going to just be another analyst somewhere along those lines. We'll wait and see when that breaks. But that was kind of just the start of things. Brian Kelly, when he was talking about Tim Rattay joining the staff, dropped a few more interesting nuggets.
Tim Rattay, who many know probably from his time at Louisiana Tech, will work on the offensive side of the ball. We've hired another offensive assistant from Oregon, Antonio Parks. He'll work with the wide receivers. And we have a couple of others that are pending HR that I can't talk about today.
So Antonio Parks is obviously a new one that we didn't know about. He had been at Oregon since 2023, so 2 seasons there up in Eugene. Worked with the wide receivers there as well. As an offensive analyst, I should say, and will do the same at LSU. Before he joined Oregon, he spent 2022 at Arizona State working as a defensive quality control analyst as well. Focused a little bit more on defensive backs, I do believe. But Brian Kelly there told you that he will work with receivers at LSU. And look, here you go. One other reason to be fired up about Antonio Parks? Care to take a guess where he's originally from? If you guessed New Orleans, Louisiana, you're correct. That is another tie back to the state. He played his high school football at East St. John, and he also has ties to Texas as well. So 2 very fertile recruiting grounds for LSU. Just another great option brought in by Brian Kelly. And then at the end of that cut, you heard him. He said there's going to be 2 more that are going through HR. Now, where those guys land, if they're both on the offensive side of the ball, or if one of them is that other special teams coach that he alluded to, we'll wait and see. But you have at least two more analysts coming in here shortly once they clear the process, and LSU and Brian Kelly, can make the official announcement, or it can get leaked by reports. So we'll keep you updated there, obviously, as well. And then lastly, with the coaching staff, he talked about Noah Joseph and kind of confirmed what we all believed his position will be.
We've added defensive analyst Noah Joseph, who's an experienced coach, both on and off the field, primarily worked with Blake at Missouri. So there's, obviously they're very familiar. He'll work in the back end of our defense.
So there you go. I mean, when he wasn't in the general manager role at Purdue, and then, he barely even got started at ECU, he primarily worked with safeties. And it sounds like that's exactly what he will do at LSU, working in the back end of the defense. Obviously, Corey is going to be very, very hands-on with the cornerbacks. That's Corey's deal. So when you hear back end, yeah, it makes sense that that Noah Joseph will have a heavy hand in the safeties for LSU. Again, a position group that must improve. Lastly, what we get to, Brian Kelly did offer an update on Colin Hurley. Of course, Hurley in the very serious and severe car accident about 3 weeks or so ago, and Brian Kelly was asked for an update on Hurley's status.
Well, as you know, because of his age, at 17, he's under 18, we've left a lot of that up to the family. I've been there to see him on multiple occasions. Progress is real. He is back in Jacksonville, and reports in talking to his dad yesterday were really positive. So we're, again, this is another scenario where, there's a recovery process here for him. But I think everybody's optimistic.
Look, that's obviously great to hear that recovery, and they're optimistic, and the updates are positive. And Kelly's right. With the age and everything of that nature, we knew reports on this would not be readily available, and that's okay. The main thing here is Colin Hurley's health and his recovery and his safe return to for the game of football, because he's got such a bright future. In that vein, Brian Kelly was asked to follow up on if they have a timetable for Colin Hurley.
Again, it's a day-to-day situation. And talking to his dad, Charlie, there's really good progress. So I think we all come at from a similar perspective, is that we're hoping for the best, but don't have any certain timetable as to when he might be back.
So again, progress, that's obviously a huge positive. Everyone's optimistic, but no timetable right now for a return. Spring practice starts on March 8th. We are a month and 2 days. So while that doesn't seem like a long time, it is a long time. But what's also important to note is Colin Hurley's back home in Jacksonville right now. Semester underway, all of those things, weight training, all that. He's back home in Jacksonville. I don't want to speculate, but the no timetable seems correct, right? This is, as Brian Kelly said, it's going to be a process. So we'll just follow the process as it plays out and continue to send well wishes and thoughts and prayers Colin Hurley's way as he recovers. All right, guys, that's our time for today. Appreciate everybody being here. Again, subscribe to the pod if you have not already. Anywhere you get your podcast apps, just anywhere you get your podcasts on your apps. Just search LSU Daily, hit the subscribe button, follow on social media. All of that is greatly appreciated. Thank you for being here, and be here again for more on LSU Daily.
One lottery ticket makes a big difference for our state students. And when I say big, I mean bigger than jackpot big. Since 2002, South Carolina students have benefited from more than $6 billion in lottery-funded scholarships and grants, including the Life, Hope, and Palmetto Fellow Scholarships. With every lottery play, you're supporting our students, and that adds up in a big way. That's why education is our middle name. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.